Just as there are falls in the world that we live in, there are great risings. And one person who kind of gets angry, a lot of times when he makes videos, very similar to me, is Westcott Loudon, the person who made that Enlighten channel. Enlighten University, it later came to be called, but then, I think in modern day, it's called Enlighten, but I have to look up Enlighten University for some reason in order to find the channel. But either way, he talks about how society has gotten the way it's gotten, and I've saw in a video game that I was playing earlier that there was this one person in the game, and he had a thing written that said there's this character that I don't know why, but I have such a massive crush on her. I want to date her, right? And it just really goes to show how this ends up happening. Isolation can have a lot to do with it, but porn addiction as a whole, it can get into people and it can create all kinds of crazy things. And it's pretty obvious that guy got on the wrong side of the internet, right? Because who just falls in love with a cartoon character? If you find yourself needing that you want to date a cartoon character, it's likely that person has been at R34 or some type of other pornographic place, and that just also brings up something else. The name of the site is R34. R34 stands for Rule 34, which means it's a rule, a fucked up satire of a rule that suggests if anything exists, there's porn of it. And of course, that's an extremely hedonistic, self-serving rule that exists. And it kind of goes into this archetype of lawmaking that Westcott Loudon says is totally destroying Western civilization. It's this idea that these people who are extremely secular and extremely atheistic and stuff like this really are not getting rid of God, and they're really not even getting rid of religion. Essentially what they're doing is they're kind of destroying the thing that holds the nuclear family and conservative values together. And they're creating sort of a form of spiritual anarchy that regresses society back to ancient times. Back in the cave dwelling days of 8,000 years ago, 6,000 BC, these people would go into a cave as a form of sensory deprivation. They basically worshipped the female genitals, and they talk about this Medusa-like goddess. He talks about that the ancient men used to worship, and sure enough, the people who were in that religion, they mutilated their genitals. Hello, that's what we see today in modern day Western culture, because of course, that's what liberalism, that's what spiritual anarchy, and that's what atheism leads to. It seems like a utopia, but in reality, it destroys structures that hold society together, and Christianity is not by any means, a perfect system, but what it's founded on is based on a system that is damn near perfect. It's the idea that there are these, Christ-like laws in the universe, that a lot of these traditions we have in Christianity have really been revealed to man through thousands of years of entering altered states of consciousness. And one of the most fascinating things about this is that Westcott Loudon explains this in a way that is totally falsifiable. So it's not like, this unfalsifiable notion of God that no one can believe in because, there is no consensus on how it works or how it operates. There's absolutely a consensus that these things are based on. And personally, I believe, I believe in the more yoga-inspired Jesus, which makes my methods a little bit more difficult to teach to people, because the yogic system really honestly requires one to gradually evolve into these higher and higher states of consciousness. It's not at all as simple as, just taking LSD as a form of an altered state, right? And that's really the sad thing about proof when it comes to God. It's a lot of the quicker ways that are the most effective and the most appealing to the atheistic people, because they are the most opposed to the idea, and they are the most they're the biggest forms of spiritual anarchist you can imagine. I mean, there is really an epiphany coming of these people who are really starting to understand the things that are that hold this society together. And the funny thing is, all these fandoms based on pleasure, all these channels on YouTube and on Pornhub and stuff that's based on nothing but hedonistic pleasure. I used to watch a lot of these things, and I was scared I was terrified of the fact of how addicted I was to, sexuality and stuff. But when I look at things like this anymore, I honestly just laugh, because, it's totally based on a system of spiritual anarchy. Totally, 100%. And that's not the same as, the anarchy that Mark Passio teaches, which is a different thing altogether. But these people, these people like the hypnotist Sapphos and these Blaze Fox characters, with these furry accounts, and these Kayla Foxes with those nasty "you got that" memes, and all these tons and tons and tons of creators that base their life on hedonism. They really, really got another thing coming, because the light of God is really starting to dawn in people. And that's a far more profound thing than these people can possibly imagine, of all this hedonistic trash that they engage in and want to bring other people down into it. It's really unbelievable. And, in Western society, liberalism as we know it, all it really does is feed this ideology. It feeds this idea. It feeds these things that create these Justin RPGs and these hypnotist Sapphos and Christians and Cyraxes and Blaze Foxes and all these kind of things. But God will endure. The Christ consciousness is older than the oldest religion. It's that Buddha consciousness, that wheel of Dharma, that Dharmakaya that lives in all things. And at the end, it will prevail. And all who live in righteousness and follow God and follow Jesus' footsteps, they will live in paradise for eternity. Because they will re-enter God and become one once again with the ultimate.